I'm sorry you didn't try, you're still trying.
Now, do you come to the hearing or only at request?
Listen,
I mean, it's just
she's
really
recorded,
questions,
didn't
right?
start
The
any
residents
rumors.
can question.
Exactly.
It's not
Usually
rumor. When it comes to horse's mouth, I'm pretty sure that's the truth.
what I was starting
Are you going to
myself.
the AIM in
So you've got some
Middlebury?
serious problems.
No, I don't think that one. Which meeting is that?
October 5th. There's 16 and 17.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And then there's the green one, or the Bloomington one.
Yeah, because I do so many of the county and the township and the county is kind of speaking out of financial matters, the county one. So, county council.
Tyree. Reed has an answer there.
But
At least you're not gonna stand there.
staff
Four
might,
hours.
might go on or something. Yeah.
It's a state board of accounts one.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah,
one of their
usually we go to
their training
the clerks.
days,
Yeah.
or their mandatory state training.
There's so many that can be involved, especially when you have townships, libraries, cities,
Mhm.
towns,
Yep.
counties.
Michelle, just so I understand on this, the budget estimate. So the published column is what the proposing, and then adopting, is just you'll adopt each of these tonight, is that how this works?
Not tonight, and I'll explain that in the whole presentation, yeah.
I just want to make sure I know what I was
Sure.
looking at.
It's a sound on.
No, I'll,
No, not yet. They're gonna wait until.
since this is
Reed
budget
gets here.
101, I'm gonna go through all of
Actually,
these.
like kicking on Reed's.
Oh, who we waiting on?
Not Reed,
And if I
Tyrone.
miss something,
Oh,
please
Yeah.
ask.
He's on his way out, I guess. So yeah, no, we haven't kicked it on yet.
And I can start there.
And you might have to adjust that microphone and flip it up depending,
I wonder.
yeah. We haven't kicked it on yet, but
Okay. Usually don't have a problem hearing you, but I've been talking all day on budgets already, and counting. Most people don't have a problem hearing.
yeah, that's not my problem. That's why I don't have a microphone in front of me. I have those things. I don't need one.
That's a great question. Mark.
Mark.
Sure. Mark.
Mark is our maintenance superintendent.
That's what I thought, but we didn't meet each other. It was nice, very nice to meet you. Okay.
So,
Oh, okay, there's one.
Just getting warmed up.
Hey, since you're up, will you go to the sign line? And the other ones. All the way to the left. Yep, thank you.
All ready?
Dayton Town Council budget meeting is now in order.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Greg Airtaz. I'm president of Financial Solutions Group, and we're FSG Corp. And
I'm here to kind of go over, this is a workshop, so it's my understanding, so stop me at any point in time if you have a question. What I'd like you to be able to do after we leave here tonight is be able to know some of the key forms and how they are integrated and what your ultimate goal is in approving the budget. I like my municipalities, the ones I work with, to make sure that they understand there's really two sides to the budget formula. One's revenue and one's expenses. And we're going to start with what's called the Form 1, the budget estimate Form 1, which is the expense side. Okay? The expense side, and these are the preliminary numbers that we put together. And the point of tonight's workshop is if you say, no way in heck do I want that number there, then we could go ahead and amend that and present it at the public hearing in that fashion. So a lot of times, work sessions, we can change numbers right now. We have not submitted this. The goal is to submit what we call Form 3, which kind of locks it down first of next week, okay? And in order to meet the publishing requirements, which really isn't published anymore, it's not in a paper, it's electronic form on Gateway, and so all the citizens can go on to Gateway and see not only your budget, they could see Tippington County's budget, anybody else's budget that they wanted to see. But they do, that it is not published in the local newspaper anymore. And so by submitting the Form 3, that's the totals, and that locks you in. So let's spend a minute on the budget Form 1. If you look at the very top, the first 3 lines is the Casino and Riverboat Fund. And if you look over to the right then, you'll see $15,500. And so that is the grand total budget for the Casino Riverboat Fund that we've set on a preliminary basis. And that will show up in the Form 3. And that will be, if you decide, it'll be the maximum. You can go down later on. Matter of fact, up until the 1782 notice, which usually that comes in December, and it's a formal notice that the clerk will receive in, and we'll go over this later on in the year, but this is the 1782 notice, and that's the final word from what we call the DLGF, and the Department of Local Government Finance. That's what DLGF is. I'll get into acronym soup a lot, so if you don't understand some of the acronyms, just please stop me and ask. So, right now, you have right behind you then, behind that page, you have 2019. So we kind of gave you that as a comparison. And what I'd like to point out, since Mark was smart enough to ask the question early on, you notice that we've only filled in the published column. Well, that's because that's what we're going to publish as part of the budget, and the public will look at it. And then after you have your adoption meeting, you could either, let's say you say other services and charges, Greg, we don't want that at 10,500, we want it at 5,000. You could cut it. And then the adopted number would show up. I'm going to caution you that some of that should be done earlier than later, because if you were to cut your general fund, let's say the general fund down here is at 344, and if you go further down, you'll see general fund total. If you were to cut that just let's make an arbitrary number to 200,000, you may really hurt yourself when you get to the 1782, because the state may not approve enough money overall, and you may say, great, we're going to lower the tax rate may be cut in half, but the next year you're going to kill yourself. Okay? So you got to be very, very kind of careful there, and that's why we have these work sessions to kind of get anything that you might really disagree with, but keep the totals, the totals will have to be the same after we submit the Form 3. Okay? The individual line items, can go down, the budget can go down, but the total cannot go up, okay? That's the ceiling, not the floor, okay? So what we've done is we've, on a preliminary basis, all subject to, obviously, Michelle's not the council, I'm not the council, you're the council, subject to your approval, is this is what we've set for the casino/riverboat. So if you look in the past and you said, Greg, I don't see the line for machinery and equipment in there, that's because we, in most cases, sometimes we put it either in a category called other, or that item wasn't spent or isn't projected to be spent, so we didn't put it in.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question? Do you have a line item thing you're looking at? A line item?
I was looking at all three of the line items of the casino. Okay? And then I was looking at 2019, the number 2759, machinery and equipment.
I
Okay.
just put out the 2020.
I was gonna say, we don't
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah, so, yeah, there was a lot of paper, so we gave the board all the paper. But, and so that's what we've got. Now, as you see, let's look at these. So any kind of question on the casino/riverboat at this point? Let's move to the general fund. Now, on the general fund, there has been, what did we assume overall, like on the town marshal's salary? We went from 60 to 62, was that our 3%?
I think it's because this year was his raise.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what we have done in here is we build in an increase in the salary lines, except for certain of the lines that you see from 19 to 20. And you've got to set the maximum here, again, in the Form 1, and your payroll ordinance then, that follows over the next 30 days, will set that salary. This sets the max. So a lot of people say, well, our salary, Greg, has a range of let's say it was a part-time position, $7 to $10. We calculate this part-time position most likely on the 10 or on a 9, and it doesn't mean you have to pay the 10 or the 9. You could pay 7, but the budget is set at that maximum number, okay? So, and again, I don't know how much of this you know, so, you've got to stop me and, if you've got any questions. So, what we've done is assumed these salaries. And if you would say, look, Greg, I want the council salary to be X per overall, then that 12,500 would need to be changed. Okay? We've assumed the same number there, and the clerk's salary. If you wanted to raise the clerk's salary, or was thinking about doing that, then we'd want to raise it here, and your salary and council salary is shared among all but water, sewer, and general fund, correct?
I think it's
Split up in the salary ordinance?
water, wastewater, I believe, in general.
Yeah. So a lot of people say, is that all we're paying, the clerk? No, it's divided according to your salary ordinance in those different funds, okay? So you can see that we went through most of these items, and if we compared June 30th, actually, Michelle and I did, and we said, if FICA was short, then we would have built that FICA up a little bit more. That's why you might see the 14 going to 18 is because there was a likelihood of, getting very, very close on 19, and we want to give on like FICA, you want to give yourself a little breather. So we would have rounded it up by $500 or whatever, just in case, and keep that so that you don't have what I call a negative appropriation. So did I answer then, once the council would go through their adoption hearing, anything that they change during that adoption hearing would be filled in here, and you technically then, Michelle has 48 hours after the adoption hearing to submit the final budget. But that's, we're talking after October 14th for you to do that. Okay? So right now, if you look down through there, unemployment, health insurance, professional services, travel, fire contract, all of those were reviewed, given the June 30th balances, and we've made the recommendations as you can see.
I got a question.
Yes,
Mark's salary is also broke up amongst the different utility and stuff.
He's general laborers, MVH, water, and wastewater. He's broken down between 4.
Okay. So wages of laborers.
General laborers.
That would be part, thank you.
okay, you will notice the one down here, if you go down to the very, the line right above the 344,500, the property tax cap of $5,000, you might say, well, Greg, I don't have an expense of $5,000, do I? And you'll look over here in the 2019 budget, and I'll say, you probably made an error in your 2019 budget. You need a line item there. Okay, you needed something in there. That is not an expense. That is not something you get to spend, and it cannot be appropriated to a different line. If you go on to Gateway, you'll see a far tab to the right, and sometimes I project it, but this room doesn't work real good for that. There's that line called circuit breaker, and this is the amount of estimated circuit breaker loss that you will incur in the general fund. Usually we have that all mapped out in the sustainability, so when we get the sustainability, we'll actually project that out 3 to 4 years and be able to show each and every year how much that is projected to grow. But this is the amount of lost property taxes you will not collect because of the 1, 2, and the 3, the circuit breaker impact on residential, commercial, and industrial property. Does everybody kind of understand the 1, 2, 3, and how if this lady over here, if she has an actual tax bill of $900 calculated, but she only pays $800, this is your share of that $100 that she doesn't have to pay, that gets proportioned to each and every municipality in the county. Okay? And so you have to have that in here in order for your budget to balance. Without it in there, you actually will have a deficit. You'll create a deficit by not having that in here. That's what took Logansport spent $3 million of operating balance in 3 years because they didn't understand circuit breaker. So you got to have that expense in here to make, I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA. You got to make your revenues and expenses match, okay? And that's how you do it. So that's why you see that item in there. Any questions on the general fund then? If not, right below that, you see local roads and streets, and I like to point out, and you might want to even make a note, I like to point out that that fund called general fund is property taxes. That fund called casino riverboat is not property taxes. That's a fund that comes from the overall state, and from the casinos and the riverboats. And so that's your allocated share, and we'll see the revenues here in a minute, but that's where that money comes from. It doesn't come from property taxes. Local roads and streets, same thing. It's not a property tax supported fund. Okay? Local roads and streets is the amount of money that you receive from the state of Indiana. It's kind of outdated anymore. Local roads and streets and MVH should be basically, they're used for the same thing, but local roads and streets has to be used for paving. It can't be used for salary. Okay? Local roads and street goes for paving, period. And things like that. So, The next fund, motor vehicle highway, is partially funded from both gasoline tax and from property taxes. So if you want to put a little line there, the first one came from the state, local roads and streets. Motor vehicle highway is combined property taxes and gasoline tax. Now, State Board, or DLGF sent out and said, cities and towns is gonna lose 10% of their highway distribution money in 2020. And at first, that was an estimation. They just lowered their estimation and put it in there. The rumor as of 2 weeks ago is now that the city of Indianapolis may have been excluded erroneously in the past from the distribution. So your distribution may actually go down, it may be permanently down. Okay? We're still, the DLGF's still working through that. So local roads and streets and MVH may get tighter here in the future. That jury's still out and we're going to see. So we were not real aggressive on that budget. Matter of fact, we kept it pretty much the same, 158,000. Okay, and we'll know more here over the next couple 30 days before you get to 1782, which is the final. But at this point in time, I don't see a lot of that new revenue we were supposed to get. A 50% never materialized. It went down to about 35%, and now it's going to go down further. So, it's making it really, really tough. Now, Michelle knows that you actually have two funds. You have in your fund report, you have a 201 fund and a 203 fund. 201 is motor vehicle highway. 203 is motor vehicle highway. And you'll say, well, Greg, aren't those the same? Well, let me put another word behind both of those. 201 is motor vehicle highway unrestricted. 203 is motor vehicle highway restricted. Okay? What is it restricted to? Paving. Okay? So, 50% of your revenues, and if we project your revenues to be from gasoline tax about 58,000, 50% of that has to be set aside in 203, cannot be used really for salaries, but has to be used for actual payment. Now, I work with a lot of small towns. They say, Greg, 25,000 isn't going to pave much of a street. Can we hold it over and have our 25 match up with our next 25 and spend it that way? And so far, the state has said yes. We understand that is a reality, and for you, it's going to be a reality because how much you're going to get done for 25,000 bucks? Not a whole heck of a lot, right, Mark? And so there is some potential there, but you'll say, Greg, I only have one fund here. Yes. Technically, it's a sub-account, and so you budget for budget purposes one fund, and you say, well, okay, how do I split it up? Well, Michelle and I, let's see, where we got? We got the roads here, and I want to do one more tweak here. What we're going to do in the final is we're going to split out part of that 100,000. If you see that bottom line on the front, we're going to call one of them restricted and one of them unrestricted. And I don't think we did that yet. And so we'll move 25,000 out of the 100,000, call it restricted, and we'll leave 75 in the unrestricted in the 708. And then what we'll do in January, so this is convoluted, I know, and I'm not trying to make this hard, but what we'll do in January is we'll move that appropriation of 25,000 to Fund 203. And so you have your full authority to spend of that. Did that confuse the heck out of you?
You have that fund set at 100,000 now.
Not fund, but that line item.
Okay.
That's a line item within the total fund. Yes.
So that 100,000 represents Fund 201 and 203?
Both, yes, sir.
Okay,
And we'll split it out into two for more descriptive purposes.
so it'll be 50 each?
No, it's 50% of your revenue. Your revenue is projected on gas tax, and that's gas tax revenue, not wheel tax revenue. Your projected revenue is 58,000 from gas tax. Half of that, to be precise, would be, we would have that, exactly 50%. But, that's what you put in 203.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Sure. And so we, again, use the 100,000, but this is where the sustainability is, and I keep talking about now, once we set this, then putting together the sustainability and showing you over the next 3 to 4 years, if you spend all that 100, what does that mean the following year and the following year after that? It means less money. Your budget would actually go down if you spent all that. And that's what the sustainability will show you, the sustainability of doing that. So you could easily say, Greg, we want that to be 50 so we can save up, for this new road project coming. And I'm gonna say, that's great, we can put 50 here, we'll put 50 more in the operating balance, keep everything the same on these other forms that I'm gonna show you, and then we're saving up. Okay? Or I could say, use some discipline, only spend 50% of this 100, and you're saving yourself. Okay? But that's where the long-term plan, and you're trying to, it's my understanding from Michelle, you're trying to save up for that $400,000 big boy coming. And that's where the sustainability is going to help us. Pardon?
800.
800 of ours? Okay. That's going to be really, like I said before, I think that's going to be really tough. I haven't done that.
Well, we have approximately 400 of that currently saved up
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out where you got that number from.
from Retha.
Well, no, she said that we could use different accounts, but
Right.
that would be literally wiping out all of those cash balances.
It would be, to use her words, she had different levels, and the safe level was 400,000.
I just don't remember, no, because she told me when she came that we would have to get a bond, there's no way that we could supply.
I don't disagree with that, but you likely would not get a bond for a full amount.
Right, she never said to me.
But
Yeah.
we'll stay on task here.
And that's what, I'll answer those questions with the sustainability, because it'll be in black and white.
Right.
And you won't have to assume we'll put your roadmap together.
Sure.
And that's what I told you there. So everything, do you understand in the motor vehicle highway, pretty much what I explained? The next one is CCI, or you'll say, no, Greg, that says cumulative capital improvement. It's known as CCI. That comes from cigarette tax, and so that is not a property tax support fund. Cigarette tax. Next one is CUM capital development. By the way, CUM capital improvement and CUM capital development technically is a cumulative fund used for capital improvements. Okay? If you're a very large city, we usually, you put some things in there and you spend some of the money for specifically improving efficiency, maybe some computers, whatever, to keep up the manpower and help people be more efficient. And that's what you can use these funds for. Now, we put in specifically the truck, and I think that's because you were trying to save up for one, Michelle?
I think the board hasn't decided it, we've just kind of talked
Right.
that Mark is driving at 98, so at least in the next couple years, I think the board would like to get Mark in something better.
In the CUM capital fund, the thing to remember here is if you don't spend that 15, next year it's there, okay? It stays within the fund and we add a little bit more, maybe 20 next year if you want to accumulate it. And I'm going to show you, again, that fund right now, by the way, on the fund report has approximately, oh, you really spent it down. It has, if I'm looking at it right, $475. So we need to accumulate it. Yeah, that's I'm gonna get to another form and we'll check that. So, that's the CUME capital improvement, cigarette tax. CUME capital development does come from property taxes. That's the one where you can change the rate up to a maximum, and I talked about that, and we won't worry about that at this point in time. It's something you might want to look at in the future. Economic development income tax, not property taxes, specifically income tax, you know, that Tippecanoe County and the, what we call the Family Tax Board approved, and that's your allocation. Okay? And all of that also, again, will be explained. You'll see your allocation and how that's developed in the sustainability. We showed that historical allocation and how that allocation can change by your tax decisions. Okay? Important to know, so as we go forward. So, that's the Form 1s or the expense side. Okay? Now let's go to Budget Form 2. Okay? Budget Form 2 is a miscellaneous revenue. Now, I think this is really eye-opening because if you look at the bottom line, we're projecting bottom line of the 2020 column. For the year, you're looking at $246,000 of miscellaneous revenues that aren't property tax revenues. And your property tax revenues for 2019 was $243. So you actually get more from other taxes than you get from property taxes. I think that's really interesting. So you're basically a 50-50 split, you know, plus or minus. So 50% of your revenue comes from all those other things at the state and local level, but not property taxes, okay? So what you will see is we've set forth each and every fund, the Racino, the general fund, what you get from vehicle excise, and we went back and estimated, updated all these estimates. Rental of property, you can see how that's interest earnings, local roads and streets, your motor vehicle highway, there's that 58,000, see that? $58,000 number on motor vehicle highway distribution. That's what you're supposed to be getting in gap, or estimated to get, I should say. These are all estimates. Cigarette tax, human capital development, and that. And so, and your income taxes from edit, which is $48,715. So this is the miscellaneous revenue side. And where all those, so any questions on some of those taxes or other income? And again, we presented 20 and 19 so that you had what I call all the gory details. But you'll notice that your edit share is not really growing too much, the 46 to 48. And once we should do that analysis in the sustainability, I'm going to show you why. Because you're going to say, well, isn't income going up in Tippecanoe County? Yeah, but other people sharing that pie, so they may be decreasing your increasing percentage. And that may sound kind of weird, but you'll see that in the numbers once we get there. Okay? All those things are critical for your planning your future. Okay?
Where does wheel tax show up? Is it a local roads and street or highway vehicle?
It's motor vehicle highway, it's right under that distribution, it says wheel tax, surtax.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so that's your wheel tax, surtax that you pay on your, when you license your vehicle. And surtax, remember, is for the bigger trucks.
Yeah.
So, yep, that's in there. Not, hasn't been really growing at this point in time, you know. And again, it's shared throughout the county.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, on Form 1, whatever below it says, budget estimate $15,500. But on Form 2, revenue, it says $8,400.
Yep, your quick study, you're moving ahead again on it. But thank you, that's my lead into my next one, Form 4B, which holds it all together, okay? And so, if there's no other questions on Form 2, we went from Form 1, Form 2, and someone will say, well, you jumped to Form 4B. That's what this form is labeled. Yes, I did. I missed Form 3, and I missed Form 4A. Let me explain Form 3. Form 3 is the little thing that goes in the, on Gateway that says, here's my maximum amount of property taxes, and here's my maximum budget. So it's going to use, if you approve the general fund at 344, it's going to show that number. You already have the detail. We didn't print that thing out. We can't even print it out until you submit it. Form 4A is only categories of expenses. It shows how much is 100, the old terms of 100s, 200s, 300s, and 400s. Personal services at 100s, 200s, others. Miscellaneous and services and charges are 300, capital outlay are 400. Means nothing to you. All the details on Form 1. Okay? So let's go to Form 4B. This is what pulls it together. And I think I told you at one point in time when we were kind of chit-chatting with you, this is an 18-month budget. Okay? Now, you noticed on the revenue side here, you had two columns. Okay, on Form 2. You had one column that says July to December. You had one column that says January to December. And notice one's 19 and one's 20. There's 18 months of revenue, right? First 6 in the first, 12 in the second. Okay, this is your 12-month budget for 20. Now you're going to say, Greg, aren't you missing half of 6 months of expenses? Well, let's go to Form 4B. Okay, and let's switch to the second page because we can see the big general fund. And you see how first line, total budget estimate for incoming year. Okay, that's the 344. Remember that number from the Form 1. The next line 2 is, if you read that, necessary expenses July 1 to December 31. That's 2019. That's the 6 months of expenses. So what we're saying here on this form that pulls it all together, that then ties to the 1782, is that looking at line 5, you need $509,000 to make this work over the next 18 months, if you were to assume you were spending all of your money. Okay? Don't ever recommend that. Because remember, what stays in the general fund helps next year a little bit. Okay, now, so you're trying to spend 509, and now let's look at what you're bringing in. On line 6, you bring in the actual cash balance as of June 30th. So we're focusing on June 30th of 2019. Okay? We're bringing that cash balance in. We're bringing the miscellaneous revenues in here. And one final number we're trying to get from the county is line 7, the amount of property taxes you'll bring in. So this form will change by the line 7. And I think Bob's got that out now, the auditor. And so what you show is on total line number 9 is the total funds that you have to fund the 509. Does that make sense? So we got 469 to fund 509, so we need to raise our property taxes of $39,000 to make up the difference. Now, you look at line 11, that's your operating balance, and that's what, in theory, people say, well, is that what I'm supposed to have 12/31 of 2020? In theory, yes. If you spent everything and you took in everything, that would be your balance. It's totally different than that because hopefully you don't spend everything, you don't get some revenue, you get more revenue, it ends up to be different than that, okay? But that, in theory, is your operating balance. And what does that do? That, if that's your operating balance on 12/31/2020, and you're not going to get your next property tax draw until June 30th, it funds the gap. Okay? And it funds the gap of 6 months of operating expenses, and you start it again. And you go and go and go. People that don't have an operating balance, like Logansport, I told you, they have to go borrow their payroll. That's bad. Okay? Number one question when you when we get to this bond issue in 4 years, if we have to get there, is do you have to borrow to make payroll? You don't want to answer that one. You want to say no. And why? Because we have an operating balance built in here, and we're not spending every last dollar we have, okay? Now, if you take some of that and appropriate it for a one-time project, that's something that Retha may have said, but you gotta be very, very careful there, because you gotta last. And the last thing you wanna do is, schools have to do it. It's a real-world situation. They have to borrow to make payroll, and every one of your schools do. Okay, it's called tax anticipation notes. You have to borrow in anticipation of the taxes coming in, okay? And it's because they've been really, really close, but that's where managing this like a business and showing and putting together the sustainability and showing you the roadmap for the future is really, really, you're gonna see, we make a recommendation that you at least have a minimum of 25% back, a minimum, okay? Otherwise, you will get into that situation, and you do not want to borrow to make payroll, okay? And so that's how this then, so let's go look at, if you look at the very first one, we're depending on the first one, if we were to spend that 15,500 mark, as you very good pointed out, and we only get 8,000 in revenue, we're going to pull down line 6. Okay, and actually line 6, the actual cash balance would end up to be difference from 67 to 52. So that's where this 1 year budget will get you in trouble really fast. Okay, and that's why I kept insisting you got to look further down the road. Stadium says, yeah, if you budget 1 year, and the state board, a lot of people say, oh, just submit your budget to DLGF, they'll approve it, and you don't need any help. And everybody that does that, state board says, we don't project in the future. So we'll, for the Racino, I'll give you a $67,000 balance, a budget, if you want one. You'll be done after this year. And they will not counsel you on that. That's where you have to be aware. Okay? And that's where we have to look further down the road, because they say, we'll approve your budget if you got the money, but doesn't mean the money will be there the next year. Okay? So, that's where this is getting to be, even for smaller towns like you are, that's where it gets real world, and you can spend yourself into oblivion real quick. That's why actually when we get to that bond issue, we're going to really want to be careful about, number one, the bond size, but number two, about how much cash we throw in, because that may cause you issues after that, okay? Cash is king, I will say that, and you gotta be careful, okay? And so what we've done then is, if they were to take that budget and spend it, so I counsel if you don't have a plan for it, we could easily make that Racino 10,000. We would make the adopted 10,000. We would go down here and raise our operating balance, and you'd have an automatic savings. Okay? So I guess I always tell people, just because last year's was 15, doesn't mean next year's needs to be 15. It can be lower, and you can still save, or maybe it has to be lower. Okay? Matter of fact, let's go look at CCD. That was one, Human Capital Development, several pages back there. You can see that one, we're so tight, it squeaks. We've got a $6,000 budget that we're recommending, and you really only get about, if you look at the bottom line down there, 11,000 in property taxes. And so, you're spending your human capital, and in order to spend 15,000 CCD, that 6,000, or I'm sorry, CCI was the 15,000. Let's go to that 15. That was right before CCD. Sorry, there's not page numbers. Well, there is 5 and 7 at the top. You can see in CCI line 6. it's page 5 of 7, yeah, thank you for that. CCI, you can see we put the $15,000 budget at line 1. On line 6, June 30th, you had 37,000. So in CCI, you only get 3,000 per year. So if you spend your CCI down, it takes a while for it to accumulate. You know, it takes about 5 years to get to 15,000. And remember, that is not a property tax supported fund, that's cigarette tax. So you can't increase those revenues at all. And actually, a lot of places they're going down because more people are not smoking. So this is the Form 4B, and I know we're getting about 15 minutes till your next meeting. So this is the one that pulls each of them together. What we're hoping is that you can review your Form 1s, get some comments back on a preliminary basis as a group if you wanted to. If you want to say, oh, we really don't agree with this, we need to get it cut, and we could go ahead and make that. But the goal is to publish this, set the ceiling, publish it next week because you got your October 1st hearing coming up. And, so you have to have it advertised well in advance of it. Okay? So, Form 1 is your expenses. Form 2 are your miscellaneous revenues. Form 4B pulls it all together, shows you the 18-month roadmap, and shows you how you can or cannot get in trouble, depending on how you set that total line. So now you know more than at least 50% of the councils, because most of the time they only look at one form, which is Form 1. They're only concerned about expenses. You got to be concerned with everything. You got to be concerned with where your cash position is. You got to be concerned about where your miscellaneous revenues go. Is it going down? Is it holding its own? And again, some of those things will be portrayed more in the sustainability. So a lot of people say, well, we never, 5 years ago we never used a consultant or anything like that. Yeah, and they got themselves in trouble, and times have changed. They've changed a lot. So.
What red flags do you see that we need to focus on from your experience?
Good question. Good question. Well, what I'd like to say is let's go back to general fund, and let's look at that second line there, 165. The second form 4B, page 2 of 7 at the top. That 165, everybody, a lot of people say, well, I got to spend it or I lose it. Okay, you lose one of the appropriations, like, let's say, travel, $3,000 in I'll just use an example. In 2019, you have community, you have insurance of 65, that's utility services of 14,000. That one you're probably going to spend, but let's say you don't spend all that, and you say, we're going to lose that appropriation. Yes, you'll lose that appropriation, but you'll have a new appropriation for 20. Okay? That money stays in the general fund and makes things better next year. So if you can not spend that entire 165, things are better. Okay? We're pretty good on the general fund because we're going to be able to have a cash balance. So, red flags, I guess red flags are if you really spend this entire 2020 budget, things will be tough in 2021. Okay? We set it at this level, which is kind of somewhat on your historical path of what you spent. But we really need to get then the long-term plan done to see if we keep up with this level, what's going to be left. Okay, but I told you, I had to have a baseline budget to go for it. And, you know, and things like that. So I think you're frugal, I think I understand that you don't, you know, you don't always spend every last dollar, but you know, you have some fairly good balances in the bank, and we want to keep you strong. Then there are some people who say, why are you hoarding my taxpayer money? Well, because you don't want to borrow for payroll and all those other things. It's a balancing act, okay? Too much and not enough. So I like to say I don't see a huge pitfall, or I would have thrown it up. But just because we budget doesn't mean you have to spend it. You lose that appropriation, but that, if you don't spend it, your appropriation's higher next year. And then you're safe. Does that make sense?
Why does the state give you evidently more money if you don't spend all of that fund? I guess I don't understand that.
Well, they have a growth quotient. So they give you the growth quotient. And the growth quotient is based upon the statewide average of non-farm payroll for the last 60 months.
Right,
Okay? That's what they say you get growth-wise.
right.
Now, the assumption there is that your payroll and your expenses are growing at an inflationary rate. And, you know, most people are getting 2 and 3% increases in salary. I've got some that have to get 5 because they're behind. And they're losing employees, you know, to other municipalities or whatever, so they have to get 5. So the state gives you more on property taxes. And that means 50% of your revenue, okay? If the other 50% of your revenue is 0% growth, what does that mean? That means you didn't get 3.5% growth. You got half of it.
Right.
Now, they give you 3.5, but they also take some of it away in circuit breaker. So the 3.5 goes to 3. The 3 may go to 1.5 after you don't get any growth in your other revenue. So they're not giving you a lot of new money.
Right.
Okay?
Well, we've experienced that. That's been part of our problems in the past, you know.
Yeah. I have the #1 growing community in the state of Indiana, Westfield. And they actually, because they're #1 growing, and they're actually growing at a rate of 12% each and every year, I got them special legislation. I like to say financial solutions. Solutions is our middle name. And they say, Greg, if you're king for the day, what would you like? And I said, here's what we need. We need to have our growth quotient match up to our assessed value so that we match our revenues and our expenses. And they actually are they actually have a growth quotient of 9%. So there are some avenues if you get yourself where, you know, in a situation, and that's a positive situation because they're not raising the tax rate, they're just meeting the services with the revenues and that. So it's actually a good matching of revenues and expenses. But, you know, that's where, again, looking out beyond 1 year. You gotta look, you know, with them, it's fastest growth, it's changing. I update their stuff monthly. So, because they're growing so fast.
That's good, because it seems like for years we've been told that if you don't spend close to what you get, that they think you don't need it, you don't get as much next year. We've been going the exact opposite way on this.
Right. And there is a relevant range, you know, that, and in the old days, the state did say if your operating balance exceeded 6 months, we might cut you. But it was might cut you. But that's where the answer is, you have a 5-year capital improvement plan, remember I told you that, and the operating plan, which is the sustainability. And you wait, you say, hang on here. We're trying to avoid taxing the taxpayer twice by issuing a bond. We're saving up. If you did that back in the old days, they said, oh, that makes sense. So yeah, if you're guided in a bad direction, you're going to go in a bad direction. Okay, so there's relevant ranges, and they don't even use that 6 months now. I've got some communities that are saving up; they've got their entire budget in operating balance, 1 full year, because they're saving for some things that they know are coming down the pipe. Okay, so yeah.
I have a quick question on the tax stuff.
But now, you got to, if you don't spend it and you don't do your budget correctly the next year, you could lose it. Okay, so you gotta make sure you do it right, yeah.
So, there's been a lot of talk about the casinos legalizing the sports betting. If that happens, will we be getting more casino tax money?
Now, my understanding is the state didn't change it. That number has been the same number over the last 10 years, and it's at this point in time assumed to be the same for the next 10 years.
So I figured they'll probably get a big influx of.
Well, and I work for Shelby County in Shelbyville, the one that has Racine, and they will get an influx, but it's not as big as you think. Now, will the state? I don't know. I don't know those numbers. I do know racinos and casinos around the state.
Okay.
And I know what Lake County's been having a tough time. Theirs has been going down. And there's been somewhat of that in the Cincinnati effect. It's the Chicago effect and the Cincinnati effect.
When you do our 5-year plan, we don't currently have anything built in our TIF district, but we would just, logic would tell us that within the next 5 years, there will be some stuff in there. We do know of one land that will be built on, and there's some projected tax revenue from that. So can you accurately get that TIF district in our 5-year plan?
Well, first of all, it's my understanding you have another consultant do it. So based upon their information, I'll use what they give you
Okay.
and review it. And we'll do the best job with whatever information they're giving you.
Okay.
And because my understanding is you've got them under contract and you're paying some good money. So
Correct.
hopefully, you get the information that we can use.
Yeah.
And we'll do the best, but remember, annually, we need to do an update.
Right.
We'll update it annually, it's not.
Well, yeah, I just like to have that information knitted into your plan. Sounds
Yes,
like you can do
I'll
that.
put it in there, again, with their information, but it will be sketchy at best the first year. And it's my understanding you haven't even got it formed. So your base year will be January 1st of this year. So you won't really collect anything for about a year or a year and a half.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So if I understand, but I really haven't gotten involved in that. So, but yeah, we'll do the best we can.
Okay.
I'm used to that. Used to death. So we've got about 3-minute warning, and Michelle said she'd pull out a cane and yank me off the podium. So, any other questions?
I have a question. Do you have one of those packets, like an extra one?
I always say,
I'll make
please
copies.
see the
I
clerk
just, we
treasurer.
can even share when I make copies or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll make copies.
Okay, thank you very much, and I hope, get any, like I said, big changes. If not, we'll be setting the ceiling and then kind of going from there, okay? And you can always come down, you just cannot go over that ceiling. Okay?
So instead of getting involved in budget again this coming meeting, so is everybody good with October 1st budget hearing and then October 14th, our regular monthly hearing for the adoption meeting for the budget?
What time?
I would probably say this normal 6 o'clock. And then the adoption of the budget would just be during the regular monthly meeting. And so October 1st is Tuesday, I believe. Oh, wait. No, excuse me, Wednesday. No, it is Tuesday. We got the wrong date. So Tuesday, October 1st at 6. So does that go with everybody?
You said Tuesday, October 1st, what was the other date?
Just, the October 4th, or October 14th, excuse me, the regular monthly
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
So they will adopt the budget during that meeting, but the budget hearing would be October 1st at 6. And you said that is just strictly for residents to come and,
Well, the first one is the public hearing,
the budget hearing.
the budget
yes.
hearing, they're comment on the budget.
Right,
And then the second one is the adoption.
yeah. But that's all. for
And
budget.
that's how it says it in the
Yeah.
form for.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you guys are good with that, then that's what I'll put in Gateway, because I have to lock those dates in.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'm gonna get on my horse and I gotta ride to Lake County and sleep there tonight, so. Sheriff, you wanna go, or Chief, you wanna go with me as backup? But thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig.
Yep.
You got another question?
No, Sage, you wanna take me out with the question?
Maybe I start
Oh,
Do you need to adjourn this meeting?
I don't think so, because it's just a work session.
He's called.
But here is this your?
That was just an extra one.
Here are your comments reports. Where that was on the board.
Closing meeting come to order. Here, any questions or on the minutes?
I'd like to ask that we maybe pen them until the next meeting so we have a chance to read through them and get an idea of all the wordage that's in it, please.
I'd second that motion.
Been motion second, take the next meeting, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Motion claim be moved to the regular meeting.
I make a motion, the claims docket be moved to the regular meeting.
Second?
Been motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Adjustment report.
Honestly, most of it, there was an issue where, when I sent over billing to Keystone, for some reason, there was a huge group of bills that got locked into, like adjustments, which none of these were even touched for adjustments, so we had to manually go back in and redo these and send them, so that's why you see a whole bunch from like landmark management, because we had to go in and manually, change those, and it's just a normal, apply deposit final bill, and so nothing out of the ordinary.
Do you have a motion to approve the adjustment report?
Second.
Been motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Clerk treasurer report.
So in your guys' packet, you will find it's the thing about the CNG fuel gas station, which is actually now A&G. So I gave you a printout of their account. Our data only goes back to January 1st of 2017. We originally contacted them because we couldn't find them when Tammy and I were going through some billing that wasn't showing up, and originally thought that they weren't paying their bill, but we had found out that their address was actually just never created in their account. Well, when contacting them and them contacting back, we came to find out, so the A&G actually does not have utilities with us. All they have is stormwater, yet they have been charged a bill since day one for water, wastewater, and stormwater. So as you can see on the utility adjustment report that BFNS did, it shows that they should only be paying the $36 stormwater charge. So they've been paying farther past January 1st, 2017, but that's all that I can pull. They have requested that they get a full refund, or at least a partial refund, for the past 3 years. They've paid $2,928.32. If you add up the $36 that they were supposed to pay since January 1st of 2017 to current, they would have only paid $1,152. So they have overpaid, at least from January 1st of 2017, $1,776.32. So I corrected their bill now so that they won't be getting the water wastewater charges anymore, they'll only be getting the stormwater, so, if we just do an adjustment and give them a credit, that's a credit for 49 months, I figured it would just be easier to reimburse them the $1,776 from the water and stormwater that they've, or excuse me, the water and wastewater that they've paid, just so that they can get a regular bill and just pay it normally now.
Would they want that, or, but you said for 3 years, so would it be 3 times the 1,700?
Well, no. So this, the 1,776.32 is from January 1st of 2017 to current.
Okay.
If they want us to go back farther, they would have to provide us that billing because I don't have any proof besides what our system goes back. So I think that they're okay with just going back until January 1st of 2017. So I will let the board decide how they want to issue that or handle that.
I think we can make a motion that we refund them the $1,776.32. That way it puts everything back on track and they can start with their regular billing.
I would second that motion.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
The only other thing on the utility side, so since I took over as the clerk treasurer and got utility clerk Tammy in there, we had originally added the last 2 Fridays of the month open until 7 o'clock. We've watched over the past couple of months of how many people have actually come in both of those Fridays. We're not seeing people really coming in the first Friday that we stay open late. And then the second Friday, we do see more people coming in, and people really don't come in after 6. So we were just thinking about changing it to the last Friday of the month being open until 6, rather than the last 2 Fridays until 7. So it would still be the normal Tuesday, Thursday, 12 to 7, so we still have those 2 late days during the week. But just changing, so the last 2 Fridays, the actual last Friday of the month when bills are due, and changing it until 6. So it would be 9 to 6 on the last Friday of the month.
I'm good with that, do we have to make a motion?
I think now, think
Well, I think you do because the board technically decides the actual utility office hours. So if you guys will just go ahead and,
I don't think they can tell you that. I mean, I think you ask for their permission, and that's great, but
Yeah.
I don't think you have to.
As long as posted up there, as the hours changed, I think.
and I'll be sending out bills tomorrow, so I will make that change on the bills, so that it will go out with this month's bills, and then I'll change it online in the door and everything. So, then that is it for utility side.
Speaking of sending out bills, can we send out the reach alert?
That is
notices
gonna be
again?
discussed on the board side.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Reed, do you have anything?
Yeah, why don't we just go ahead and go through the Dayton United Methodist Church settlement agreement. So what I would like, since that has been fully executed, is a motion to ratify the settlement agreement and authorize the clerk to issue the settlement check. Any questions on
So this is
where
the,
that is?
this is the original agreement?
Correct. Yep. So we had some back and forth, but what we did was we had a vote that authorized, the draft you approved to be sent on to the church, and then they have signed that. So now we're just at the point to, on our side, get it in the minutes to ratify that, we've actually signed that agreement, and then we're gonna authorize Michelle to pay that.
23, whatever.
I didn't bring my copies of my,
I don't have any of my copies either.
Do you want me to go grab the?
I have
signed
notes
copy?
on mine.
Could I just see it real quick, Ron? This one, it's just the original bill voted on, agreed on, right? No changes, it just went back to the original.
Correct.
It's just the one without that paragraph. We asked them to make changes, they added a paragraph, we didn't like it, so this is the original one that we agreed on, so.
Yep, there's been 3 drafts.
Still,
They proposed added language. We accepted in version 2. We accepted part, rejected part in version 3, and then, so what they agreed to was just to delete their proposed language from version 2 and just sign version 1.
And on version 1's release, it states that the interest pertaining to the stormwater fee, they're releasing us from that.
No.
I've thought about this again to try to explain it. I think a better way to explain it, because you guys aren't necessarily, thinking about, how's this gonna be typed out into a court pleading, if this goes to court. So, without a release, if they filed suit against us, they would have, there's 2 parts to any claim. So you have liability, the legal claim, and then you have damages. All right, so they would have count 1, breach of contract for the stormwater. Count 2, breach of contract for the credits. Then they would have a separate state law claim, had nothing to do with the contract. Count 3, breach of, it's like 3974. All right, so they're saying that, this state code says that if this is considered an impact user fee, this state law says that if the town does a refund, you have to pay both the refund and interest, okay? So that's why it's just, it's a completely separate claim. I mean, you don't get a release on the damages side, you get a release for the claims. So what we have addressed is count 1, breach of contract for the stormwater. We're getting a full release from that. We just haven't gotten a release for their 3rd claim, which is a state law claim. Has nothing to do with the contract. And that's why, so that's why, without getting into all that, that's why I made that recommendation. And I think maybe why we had a disconnect before in what release is required. But that was just never on the table, that we were gonna be able to get a release for that 3rd legal claim.
Okay. I'm good with ratifying it.
I'd make a motion to ratify the church agreement to go ahead and have Michelle authorize the, or cut the check for the 23,000 and 23,000.
It was 23,200.
200.
Yeah, that amount.
Second.
A motion and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Can we stamp this one? Or do you-
No, I already have the original.
Anything else?
So does that check have to be done now, or can we do 30 days, or what are we looking at?
17 years.
Yeah,
It does not specify a time in there, so we just don't want them to sue us for failure to perform the settlement agreement. But yeah, I mean, it's not a 24-hour, we have to get it to them tomorrow, but I'd recommend that we get it to them as soon as we can in our normal course of paying those. Or soon.
He'll probably be in asking Michelle soon.
Okay. Do our own business? Utility report.
thank you.
Turn this thing
Hmm?
on. So we turn this thing on,
I think it already is. I don't think he turned it off.
I don't think it is.
At the very, on
So the first item under water is testing that is required each year by the state for all towns. And it is to do with the chlorination process. So each year we're required to submit 2 water samples to a lab, and they send a lab to the state. We did it last year, we've done it this year, we do it every August, and the test came back good. It's just it's a byproduct test that they're concerned about if you use too much chlorine, the byproducts that are produced by doing that.
Excuse me, Mark,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Would it be inconvenient to move the mic closer or to speak louder?
For some reason, it doesn't seem
I'll
like.
turn it up when you just start talking, I'll wait for which channel.
Which, well, there's a sticker on it. What does it say, which mic number it is?
Number 6.
Try it now.
We'll
Is
talk.
that better?
Can you hear better?
Can you hear me better, Cindy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's coming.
Yeah. I can't hear it up there. but
Well, he
I'll
was
try- I'll
looking
just
at
try
it.
to-
Flip
that's
it
why.
off and then flip it back on.
I can hear. It's not coming through the system.
Maybe the batteries.
It sounds totally different through the system, and it's not.
It says it's on? Can
Let's start talking about Ty, adjust.
Can you hear me now?
Sounds the same.
How's that?
It's not the same. If it's input 6, they're cranked up and then.
Yeah, I don't think it's working. I'll just
No,
try to
it
speak. I'll just try to speak louder. Okay?
Thank you.
So anyway, the test results came back good. The next item is the meter pit at the BP gas station. Twice last winter, it froze up. I was able to get it rolled out, but we just ended up spending some money repairing that meter because it wasn't taking a reading, although it's letting water flow through, we weren't getting accurate readings on it. So, and now that the repairs have been completed, the problem with it is that it stains about the ground, just about a foot. But I'd like to get some topsoil, bring it in there, get that all graded off, and seed it and straw so that we don't have to worry about it. It's the wind that was doing it last winter. So I'd like to go ahead and get that done if I could.
I make a motion that we have whoever Mark would like to get some dirt put in there, seed and straw.
Second.
Good motion, second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Thank you. On September 5th, the hydrant testing was completed by Amy Simpson. So the schedule we're on is that every year, 20% of the hydrants will be flow tested. And this is primarily for fire protection rating for the insurance industries. However, by doing it every year, 20% every year, we somewhat get 2 for 1 because then we get flushing of hydrants done also. And whenever you do this testing, you also test the hydrant, do maintenance on the hydrant before. So in a sense, we're getting 28 done each year. Although the insurance numbers are just off of those specific 14 each year. And I'll just keep rotating them around. You know, we won't do the same 14 every year by any means. But also when they do this, they do maintenance on those hydrants also. So we had the flow testing numbers, which I'll share with the Township Fire Department for insurance purposes. And we got maintenance done on 28 hydrants. So it cost us about $2,000. I think it's money well spent. So the inspection of the sewer mains in Deerfield Farms, that was completed on August 27th and 28th. And I looked at the report and some of the video, and there were no spots found that were letting stormwater in. So, yeah. So that guides us towards downspouts and sump pumps. So, just in a drive-by survey of the Deerfield subdivision, identified 12 homes whose downspouts, all or some of them, go underground. So, there's two ways that can be addressed. One is through smoke testing. The other one is through video. I think in either case, we or I contact those 12 specific homeowners, tell them what we're trying to achieve. If they can show us where that outlet's out, maybe it does in the ravine behind their house, I just didn't see it, we mark it off the list. You know, what happens often is that, so they're the third homeowner. They don't know where that water goes to. And I explained the whole situation to them and try to just let them know about the financial part of it as far as the town and their rates. And I think that would be a better way to do it since there's only 12 within that. I just take the time to contact them individually. And I prefer, I'd have to get a price on it, but I prefer if we just go to the clean out, just outside their home, we video it out to the main. It'll show if there's any other piping tapped into that. There shouldn't be any. So if there is a tap coming into that service going from the house or the clean out to the main, we'll have to identify where that water's coming from and work with the homeowner.
Will the video go from the clean out to the main?
Yes. Yeah.
Because aren't a lot of them hooked up from the house too, and they come into the pipe and then go through the clean out, or the clean out over here is halfway out in the yard?
Oh, it is.
It's not, so you could have all the downspouts
Well,
on
we
that
run
house.
it both ways. We run it both ways. A lot of them are just 2 or 3 feet from the building itself, but if it's that situation, we run the camera both ways. And they can do it from the main. They can go in from they can turn up that. It's amazing what they can do. But of course, this last time, we were just primarily concerned with the sewer mains themselves. I guess really the point of the discussion is that I would like to contact those 12 homeowners and just get the process and the conversation started with them. And then we just go from there. As far as deciding whether it's a smoke test or a vehicle inspection of those service lines.
Reed, is this something that maybe you and Mark could work on a introductory letter to mail to those 12 homeowners before he knocks on their door? Or maybe mail the letter requesting that they get hold of Mark to come out and inspect those drains?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Because we're gonna run into, people working 8 to 5. And so I think they'll eventually,
So it would be,
Probably need some
nothing
appointments
more
made.
than an introductory letter.
right,
You know, I think that's the best way
right.
to plant that seed anyway. Just let them know the impact of stormwater getting into the sanitary system.
And then as far as, should you, I assume out of 12, you're eventually going to get to a point with a few of the houses to have a need for somebody to camera that, so.
Yeah, and that's where I will get with you all on a price,
Yeah.
what that might cost us to get that done. And also, you made a good point, Ron, I'll see where that, or if there is even a clean out there that's accessible. If we have some that aren't, we might have to come through the sewer main to get up in there and see what's going on.
Or maybe go down through the downspout.
No, that's true. Next item is emission control, which is the diagnostic tool that we have on all the lift stations and on the metering station out here on I-65. I had mentioned at the last meeting, maybe the one before, about they were updating Verizon signal. So those new chip boards were sent to us and they've been installed at all the lift stations and everything's up and running the way that it should. It didn't cost us any money for it, but it's just an upgrade that was necessary. That leads me into the sewer metering station. So whenever I was doing the end of month report for August, we had dry weather, but our gallons leaving the town had more than doubled. We're up to 4.5 million gallons, and it should be around 2. So I looked at it and see a lot of water going through that flume where this transducer measures the water depth. That's how it comes up with the gallonage. So I knew one or two things was going on. Either there was a blockage down in there, which I think has occurred before, or the eye itself needed to be calibrated, but we just had it calibrated in May, I believe it was. It's a deep pit, it's a confined space entry, so I got a hold of V.L. Anderson. They came out there on September 5th, and there was some blockage there that was causing that water to stack up. So it's all cleaned out, they made sure it was calibrated. So then I got a hold of Lafayette Renew, because they were getting ready to get a bill for 4.5 million gallons. And spoke with them, sent them the average monthly or daily flows for back as far as they wanted, so that that could then be used to have a new bill on that. On average, we had about 66,000 gallons a day. Well, most of those readings were 150,000 a day. So although we did have some expense with Bill Anderson coming out and doing this, it was not near as much as what the bill is going to cost us from Lafayette Renew. And I think you had mentioned that this had happened before,
Yeah.
Ashley, so it's not common, but something that we definitely want to keep track of and work. Did you work with them before and they readjusted the bill?
I believe so, yes. It seems like about once every 4 years this happens, so.
Okay. Next item is under stormwater, so we, Battleground, Purdue, Lafayette, and West Lafayette are part of this Tippecanoe County Partnership for Water Quality. The young man was here a couple months ago. Ben, he gave the talk about rain barrels and those type of things. He's an urban educator for the stormwater. The reason I have it on there is that they would like to see all the communities be more active, proactive in this stormwater management. Stormwater in Tippecanoe County is just as important as wastewater or water. You know, it's a big item here. And there's a large staff at the county that addresses this. And the reason I bring it up is I think they're going to start asking smaller towns like ourselves and Battleground to participate more in this program. You know, I will do it as time allows, but I just kind of planting the seed to let you know that it's going to be taking some more time and seeing people on. The last item I have is State Road 38. You might have seen some survey crews out here the last month. I think clear from Sagamore all the way down to the cemetery, they are redoing all the ADA ramps. So although these ADA ramps are fairly new and they look fine to us, that criteria and those specifications for ADA ramps changes every now and then. So they're going to be replacing these. I don't know if they're starting in Lafayette and working this way or starting here and working that way, but they said it would be 2021, but they gave me a notice, they want to know about where utilities are, those type of things. So maybe it will fold into this State Road 38 extension or finishing up this last section. We'll hope that it's not two separate projects, but just one, at least for the section that involves Dayton. Okay. Any questions?
On, when he gets into checking into the downspouts and stuff with these homeowners. It would, I would think, be to your benefit if you could get a camera person out there in a pretty short order to camera those drains.
Yeah.
Are we good with giving him some type of approval to get that done at a reasonable cost? I mean, it sounds like we're only talking about 12 houses, and I don't know how those people charge, but I think it'd be appropriate to.
By the foot, just run $1 a foot. At least that's what it was on the mains, it's 85 cents a foot on the mains. So I would say 12 houses, let's say it's 100 feet, you know, I think we'd be looking at less than $2,000 to get them all, maybe about, I would hope.
Hopefully you can rule out some of them.
Before then, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll show me the outlet. You know, that's great.
I'd just like for you to have the approval to do that, you know, when you're out in the field working on it, so. Do we need a motion on that or anything, or
Might as well make one.
make a motion that, we hire a camera company, when we're in the Deerfield area, checking on downspout drains?
Second.
Make a motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Comments from the residents concerning water, sewer. Anybody? Tim? Tom?
Yep.
Ron?
I'd like to talk a little more about this leaf bid that we never really completed last time. Ask you guys a couple questions about it.
Utility.
I know, I thought it had to do with utilities and running into stormwater drains and leaves and everything, so.
Speak
That's
up,
what I was
please.
told before. I just wanna, I brought up last month about that a couple of our bidders would like to do it, the leaf collection, and we really haven't made a motion to award the contract this year to either one of them. I understand that one of them came in, called Tyrone, I think you up, and maybe Ashley, and said that they'd, I'm not sure who it called besides you guys, notified me they'd like to bid on it, it could save the town $1,000. But you'd have to, you can't just say it, you'd have to bid on it again. And it seems like when a vendor, as in the past, whether it's trash or anything, the vendor comes in and offers to do it quite a bit cheaper, you look at it and you put it out for bid again. I did talk to Kelly, and he said that actually you had talked to him in the spring and said that you had mentioned it, and he hadn't really, he said he'd let you know, hadn't thought about it more. So,
He did let me know.
when did he let you know? I talked to him last Friday, I think, so.
Yeah. Well, he let me know, gee whiz, probably May or June. I talked to him in the spring, and he said, yeah, he said he'd get back with me, and then we did get back together, and
Okay, well, he didn't say that to me. I mean, he said he hadn't really told you, but he said he'd look at his contract and stuff. But it brings up something that if you put it out for bids, and the bidders come back and say they can reevaluate it and do it quite a bit cheaper, do you want to save the town money or not? I think in this case, some of this has to do a lot with this ongoing politics we have versus just what would it hurt putting it out for a bid. Both of them have done the job once. Both of them have done it to our satisfaction. And, you know, it just seems like it'd be the fair and honest thing to do with these people.
I think it's fair to the, not fair to the guy that gave us a little bit to begin with, and then some guys now decide that he can do it for probably what, $2,000-3,000 less than he was gonna do it the time before, so that's not fair to the guy that we
Well,
already got.
we did that over the years with the trash pickup. People, the one company would come back in and do it, they'd see what the other bids are. Everybody, when they bid on something, they throw out a certain bid, and not knowing what it's, you know, what the other competition's gonna do. Then they reevaluate everything, and it's the same way with trash pickup. Some of the higher ones came in lower the next time, and we still put those out for bid.
And we put language in quite a few of our bids, and trash bid is one of them, you know, that the contract can continue on for multiple terms if there's, if both parties are in agreement and, you know, no changes in the specifications and such. You know, we're talking about you know, it's not a, you know, $1,000 is $1,000, but, you know, we're not talking about, you know, $100,000 contract and somebody, you know, came in, you know, 50% cheaper. You know, I think it sets a bad precedence, you know, when you know, award something to somebody, and now you're gonna go back later and say, well, you know what, you know, somebody else came in a little bit cheaper, so we're not gonna use you.
We awarded it for 1 year, we awarded it according to language for 1 year with the option that we could continue it, you know, if we wanted to, but then at the last meeting, you said this could be 10 years, so what does that mean to any of these?
Yeah, the board could go on, you know, it's like our previous trash contract, you know, it started out as a 2-year contract, and, you know, it probably ended up being 5 or so years
Well,
long.
we put it,
So,
I put it out for bid 3 or 4 times in my tenure as clerk, so
yeah.
I don't think it's right, what if there's new people on the block that you have a tenant, you could virtually just dominate and hand contracts to all your friends and buddies, and that's what happens, why they usually do a year or 2 or something, have some kind of a
Well, it's okay.
ending date, but the way that language talks, at least talk like each couple of years, and I think some of you said at the last meeting. My question is, if you don't want to do it this year, will we do it next year? Or are you guys gonna, there's a personality thing here, and we all know what it is.
No,
Are we
there's
going
no
to, actually,
personality thing.
let me,
It's a contract.
actually, there's a personality conflict. It has to do with a lot with the church, the politics and everything. And are you guys gonna hand the other person the contract every single year for 10 or 20 years? And somebody else wants to come in that maybe lives here and has a business and wants to
Didn't the
bid
first
on
time
this?
though, that Dave did that, he gave us a bid, and then he came back and charged us about $2,000 more because he waited till it rained?
Yeah.
So, I mean, who's to say he's not, you know, give you this number knowing that
He
you're
did,
gonna charge extra
Tyrone,
hours?
that's a lie, he did not do
That
it that
is a
way.
lie.
Yes.
That is
he
a
did.
No, he didn't
Go
do
back
it
and
that
look at
way.
You guys, go back and look at our billing.
It's 100%
I
flat.
think somebody was in charge of it and had to do it at certain times, and that person didn't supervise it right, so therefore we got our ass in a sling, and it cost the town more.
Yeah, he was in
And
charge
who
of
was in
it.
charge of that, Ashley?
He was in charge of that, he
It
set up
was
the
you in
dates.
charge of it, Ashley.
And
You were the ultimate guy, you've always been in
I'll
charge.
make a motion to retain the last person to do the leaf.
Oh, the motion.
second,
Got a motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
all right,
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carried.
make a motion, we dismiss the service utility board meeting.
Okay.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Dayton Town Board meeting is now in session. Ask for approval of minutes for Town Board minutes, August 12, 2019.
I'd like to make a motion that we hold those for the next meeting so we can have a chance to look through the wordage.
Second. Been a motion made, properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Special meeting minutes for August 15, 2019. Yeah, just suspend those two.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do those two.
Second. It's been a motion made, properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Motion carries. Approval of the claims docket for September 9th, 2019.
Make a motion, we approve the claims docket, September 9th, 2019.
Second. Been a motion made and properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Motion carries.
No opposed?
I'd like to ask for approval of the claims
Fund.
fund report for August 31st, 2019.
Make a motion, we approve the fund report for August 31st, 2019.
Second.
Been a motion made and properly seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Allowance docket for August 1st, 2019 to August 31st, 2019. Any questions on the allowance docket?
Make a motion to approve the allowance docket August 1st through August 31st, 2019.
There's been a motion made and properly seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye. I'd like to ask for approval of the revenue report for August 31st, 2019.
Make a motion to approve revenue report August 31st,
Second.
2019.
Been a motion made and properly seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Last one, approval of the appropriation report for August 31st, 2019.
Make a motion to approve appropriations report August 31st, 2019.
Second.
There's been a motion made and properly seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Clerk treasurer report for on-board meeting.
Okay, so the first thing, you guys have a pamphlet that I put in there for the 2019 IMLCT District Meeting and Education Day. So I got an email from from the State Board of Accounts. This is considered one of the state called meeting days that they now require the clerks to have so many hours in a year. So as you can see, there's two different locations, one in Middlebury and one in Bloomington. I'm asking the board for approval to go to the one in Middlebury. So the first day is actually an education day, and it actually has to do with income tax, tax abatements, passing on the baton, and other things that the clerk treasurers and professionals in the public works space need to know. And then the second day is actually the district meeting. So I'm asking for approval to attend both of those days, and then since Middlebury is up north, you can see that they have a special room rate for $112 a night. So I figured that I would drive up in the evening of the 15th, stay the night the 15th and 16th, and drive back the 17th at the end of that day. It's not a casino, it's not a party thing, it's an Amish town, so.
It's one of the good ones.
I'll be seeing a lot of horse and buggies, that's about it. So I just asked for the board's approval that I attend that and stay the 2 nights in Middlebury.
Should go to that.
I'll make a motion that we approve her 2-night stay plus her 2-day event.
Second. Been a motion made and properly seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The second thing, I just wanted to give the board an update that I already had set up the treasurer checks from Tippecanoe County for all of our payments and taxes and everything. I had set that up for EFT. Now I have the state auditor checks set up for direct deposit. So there will never be any more fear of a check sitting in the office or not getting deposited in time. They automatically go into the bank account. I will get an email stating what was deposited and what funds I need to put it in. So now those are both direct deposited. So hopefully who's ever here after me will continue on with that. The next thing, so last month we addressed the reach alert because we had gotten the invoice where we were getting charged $2 per house. For every house, whether the people were signed up or not. The board did vote to go ahead and discontinue that service. When I called to talk to them about the situation and that the board was just not okay with paying the $1,000 with only having 70 houses signed up, they did tell me that what they can do, instead of charging us for every single house, that they can charge us $3 for every house that's signed up, and that's good for a year. So then the 71 houses that we would have signed up, it would cost us $213 for the year. So if we promote, I can put it on the bills, I can put it on the website, we can put mailers out, everything. If we get 300 more houses signed up in the next year, we will not pay for those houses. In a year, we will then reevaluate, and they can either then go back to the $2 a house if we have most of the towns signed up, or then they can just continue to charge us the $3. So at that rate, I am comfortable with continuing that service and trying to promote even more for another year to give it another opportunity. So I know I sent you guys out the email So I'm just leaving that open if you guys want to go ahead and try that, since it is only $213 for the year.
Yeah, it's cheap enough then, so.
I'd make a motion that we go ahead and reinstate it.
Second. There's been a motion made and properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So this is where I can ask, can we send out a separate flyer
Yes.
in the water bill?
So since you guys have approved it again tomorrow, what I'll do is the messages that go on the bottom of the bills, I'll put that on there. Then, I can't put a mailer in this one yet because it's too close, but I can have a mailer sent with next month's bill, with like what we had out here on the table. I'll put it on our website, I'll put it on our Facebook page, and try and get as many people, and then we'll reevaluate it in a year again.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So yep, so you should see that then on September's bills that people get. The next thing, in our audit, one of the things that the State Board of Accounts addressed with me when we were going through everything in the office is that we're missing a lot of stuff on our salary ordinance, like positions. Mark actually isn't listed on there to be paid his insurance. So it's something, I know that salary ordinance is in November, but it's something that we need to address and get it on so that it can be drafted and corrected. I am requesting that we have a separate salary ordinance meeting, just so that we can sit and focus on this and actually go through everything. So the date that I picked, if everybody's good with, is September 26th at 6 p.m.
What day is it?
It's a Tuesday, I believe.
Thursday?
Thursday?
Probably just.
Yes, it's a Thursday.
Afterwards.
Yeah, just to make sure that we're all in it, and then we can work together with creating the ordinance to make sure that everything's in it
Right.
for then. So if that's good with everybody, then we'll put that on the books.
Time?
6 p.m. So is that good with everybody then?
Yeah.
The next thing, I wanna say it was 2 months ago. I had talked to you guys about bank reconciliations, about how everything was matching up with the bank account and the fund report, but for some reason the numbers were off, and then the bank recs all from last year were out of whack. So you guys approved that I could let Retha look over everything. So she did, she looked into them and sent me reports, and her and I met. So he pretty much found what was internally wrong. Some of the stuff was a simple print button, because we found out that even though we were receiving it and everything for, I think it was the month of July, when we pulled the revenue report, it showed that there was zero revenue, simply because we didn't hit the print button for every receipt. So it's just simple stuff that I have to correct. Again, it's a learning experience. This is my first go. So next month, you guys then will have in hand the June, July, August, and September bank recs. You guys have had the rest of the year. Retha said that I don't need to go back and redo every single one of those. She just said to put our notes with them, so then our next audit, it will show why they were off, or, not matching the numbers. The next thing is, so obviously, again, a couple months ago, I asked you guys if it was okay, because we had the iPad, if Tammy could record the videos. The iPad was completely clean, and she attempted to record the August meeting, but it cut out at Mark's part. She didn't get any farther than that. So I don't know if the board wants, how they want me to move forward with that. Do they want me to purchase a small video camera? I can probably get a decent one under $300, or how you guys want me to move forward with recording.
I think she could go ahead and get a small video. You have the tripod, right?
That tripod was Tammy's, she let us use, but I can get one, but she was letting me just use hers right now, I think it's an extra one.
I think we could make a motion to allow her to go ahead and purchase the.
Second.
There's a motion made and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Before we do that, is there a dollar amount? She says about $300, but I think it's gonna be a little bit more for the combined. So maybe up to 5. We'll be all right with that. That'll get her a tripod and a camera,
Yes, I think so.
and then the cables you need for the downloads.
So I have kind of like an unconventional, so that's the end of my report on the board side. I did want to kind of address something, so I just typed up something if the board doesn't mind if I read it, instead of trying to, I just want to read it and leave it at that and move on. So if everybody's good with that. So there has been some questions about me hiring Financial Solutions or asking that request. So I'm just gonna kind of address some things and then move on. So I want to first start out by thanking the board for their support in my first year of them appointing me to be the town's clerk treasurer. It has been a learning process, and I work daily to learn more and more about my position and responsibilities to the town. But tonight I wanted to address a couple things and clear the air on some subjects. There have been some comments made about some of my financial choices since I have become clerk treasurer. It was said that I asked for money from a utility to be transferred, which is not the truth. I was asked to look into and research the utility reserve fund that a previous clerk treasurer had began to get information on before my time. I notified the board to let them know that I was getting information on it and gathering facts to see if it would be something good for the town. As the board knows, I have never brought the subject up again due to certain findings. How are the board and I supposed to make suggestions about possible changes if we do not research things rather than just jumping into something? By gathering information regarding a matter is how you determine if it is something good for the town or not. Last month, I asked the board to approve hiring Financial Solutions to help me with the budget at the cost not to exceed $2,500. I understand that it seems like a lot of money for help with budget, and yes, the state can assist with it free of charge. But this is my first year doing budget, and I want to make sure that we look into it deeply and make sure that we are not piggybacking off of a previous year's budgets. That doesn't help the town create a strong and safe budget for the next year. Does this mean that I will need help completing every year's budget? No, it doesn't. But since this is my first year completing budget, and after the year that we had last year, I want to make sure that it's done right to help eliminate any problems next year. Last month, I also asked the board if they wanted to hire Financial Solutions to do a 5-year outlook. The board all voted 5-0 that they wanted to hire them to complete the report to help with future planning for the next 5 years, as we have a $4 million project coming up. It is said that our fund software can create a printout of us regarding a 5-year outlook free of charge. Amazing that everything in this world can be done correctly, wait for it, free of charge. The whole point of helping in depth with this outlook is because Fund won't be able to discuss with the town everything it should consider over the next 5 years. It can't ask us questions to make us think about what we want to do or what our goals are. Financial Solutions will be able to help us with that. We don't want to just punch in some numbers and make some educated guesses. Some people need to remember that I didn't work in the utility office for years because I was appointed the new clerk, before I was appointed the new clerk treasurer. I didn't get years to learn everything before stepping up into my position. So yes, I am going to need help and guidance on some things as I learn. I want to learn how to do things the right way, not just guess, and then end up costing the town more money in the long run. Every town needs to have a financial advisor to help them make good choices for the town and to be there to answer any questions that the clerk might be doing her job. I have spoke with many towns and they were all shocked to find out that the town of Dayton hasn't had one all of this time. It has been said that it is as easy as walking into a bank, talking to a bank manager to obtain a CD for the town. Yes, it might be as easy as that. However, with all of the projects and expenses that the town has ahead, I also want to make sure that I am investing the right amount in the CDs and not causing the town any financial burden by locking up our funds if needed in an emergency. But my question is, if it's as easy as walking into a bank and sitting down with a manager to obtain a CD, then how come the past clerks didn't do it when they were in office? Food for thought. Finally, I want to thank the people who brought the idea of movie night for the town to like. However, when I took over, Tyrone came to me and told me that the board approved it last year, but no one made it happen, and that's what he asked me to do. Tyrone asked me to make it happen, and that's exactly what I did, and will continue to do so. Let's all remember that we are only one town, and we aren't the only town that organizes these types of events. It's not about who suggests them, it's about who makes them happen. As the town of Dayton's current clerk treasurer and the picked clerk for the next 4 years, I will always suggest and bring to the board what I believe is financially and ethically right to the town. I have been and always will be transparent with the board and the residents. My door is always open if anyone ever has any questions or concerns. So, that's just my piece. And I think
you've been doing a fantastic job.
I think Greg kind of, before he even said, you can't just piggyback off of a budget. You can't just go off and click a button and say you don't want to change it, because that's how towns end up in the financial problems. So,
Because of what happened last year, we need this professional help.
Yes.
And you're new at it, you haven't been in that office a long time, so.
and it's going to be a learning experience, and I'm just like everybody else, I'm learning as I go. So, I appreciate the 90% of the town and the whole board's support in the learning, and I feel like I've had your guys' support. But I was also said that we were paying somebody to do my bank reconciliations, which the board knows that's not true. Retha was hired to help find what I couldn't see with the naked eye. It was also said that the board was paying for my husband's reconciliations. I have no idea what they're talking about, but hey, that's my piece, and I'm done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're doing fantastic.
Town attorney.
You really are.
I don't have anything prepared. I think the first thing is, I'd like to have the town pay for my membership to the Indiana Municipal Lawyers Association. It's really needed. I can connect with the director, but also they have an active listserv, and it's just a lot of good.
That's around $100 a month.
It's $100 a year.
Oh, okay.
So Joe Bummelberg always did that. Paul Eggleston didn't pay for it, just so you know, but he recommended that they were kind of doing that out of a favor, and it really should be the town paying it, so that's why I put it on here last year. To pay that, it's $100 a year.
And I did talk to the scouts on here, because I asked her, since it's so close to the end of the year, if like they prorate or anything, and she said they don't. So I mean, it's still $100 right now until it renews, but I mean,
So it says it's for a calendar year.
well, but this is 4/18, so I think this what started in January. So you would be coming in toward the end of the year. So it wouldn't be like if we paid it now, it went to September of next year. This
Oh,
is
it does
only
now.
good until like December of 19. Yeah, so, I mean,
Joe's been forwarding the emails to me, but this will upset you.
I think it's a good idea. I'd make the motion to go ahead and get paid for the Indiana Municipal Lawyers Association, even if it's only for the next 4 months. I'd keep the typical price, because that's about like $25.
Second.
yeah.
It's been a motion made, properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next thing, so we're moving forward with redevelopment commission in the TIF district. I did talk to Jason about annexation, touch base with him on that, because that will stay with the town council as far as going through that process. So I think they do have some information maybe that they're waiting on the town council to provide, but I think once we get moving forward with TIF district, we'll be able to get that going as well. So just kind of where things are.
So what information are they needing from us? I know that because of the census year, that they had to wait until after January for some things on the annexation, but,
Yeah, he didn't know,
okay.
because he doesn't handle the annexation. So
Okay.
he was gonna check. So I'm not entirely sure if they do or
Okay.
not. And I don't know if it was on annexation, they had asked you some questions, or if it's just on the TIF district. The only thing that I know, is we had questions from Heather, and then we sent those on, and that's the only thing that I've known as far as information was.
from us, we need to
Yeah, like,
provide to them.
well, Jason,
You wanna follow up with them, see what they need from us, and let's get it to them.
That's all I have.
And everybody has signed the oath, just so you know, I have everybody's signature, so whatever you guys' next step is.
For the redevelopment.
Yeah, I'm gonna get those tonight, email a copy on to Heather, so she has some for her file.
Okay.
And then I'll touch base with her, just to confirm that she's working on that declaratory resolution. That's the next step on that redevelopment side.
Okay.
That's what happens at the first meeting, the redevelopment. So we can get that drafted, and we can get the meeting scheduled.
Okay, motion table.
Afternoon. Any questions on the activity report that I submitted last month? Just a little bit of information on activity and how we approach things. We routinely get complaints about speeding in certain areas or specific stop signs that are being ran. Most of the time centers around traffic complaints. A lot of our activity, we gear around that way. Just like all of you get things brought up to you by the residents, I also do that, and that's integrated in how we do our enforcement efforts, especially traffic enforcement efforts. For instance, this last month, we spent a lot of time on Walnut Street or 38 because that's a response to complaints that have come directly to me or that I've garnered from Facebook articles or things like that. A few weeks ago, we had complaints about traffic on Cagles Mill on the court during school bus hours or during early morning school bus drop-off or pickup hours. So I came in 2 or 3 days early to address that specific problem. That happened to be a complaint about a specific vehicle at a specific time. I was able to address that problem, but I do adjust my hours and the other officers' hours based on the feedback that I'm getting or complaints directly from residents. So I don't always discuss that in detail with these activity reports, but I wanted to assure you that that type of activity and enforcement and response is being done. We don't ignore any complaint that's going on. If one person calls in and thinks that it's a problem, then it's a problem. There's probably 10 more that aren't saying anything about that specific instance. So I do my best to address those types of things so that you hopefully don't have to hear about those kinds of complaints. Hope to field off anything. And hopefully, if you do have something, I'm sure you would address it to me. That is something that came through your channels. And I welcome that feedback. Kind of leading into that is my next topic, and that's parking around school, which there have been some complaints consistently for a couple of years addressing parking around the school area. And specifically, I got a couple of things. Notice what I'm talking about here. I don't know if I have enough for everybody, but during certain events at the elementary school, like in the morning, muffins with moms, or they're having a kindergarten roundup, or they're having some special event after school. We have a problem with some of the parking on certain streets around the school, specifically parking on private property, parking halfway in the grass, rutting up yards, or clogging up residents' driveways, all because of the overflow from school events.
I've addressed this with the school. There have been some changes made in traffic flow. They are sending out emails to their students, parents, asking them in the event that there's no parking available to park in the ball fields as an overflow parking area. I've also suggested that, they might want to consider revamping their parking lot to allow for extra parking. And they've got a lot of green space over there that could be used for that. That would make things safer for both parents and kids while alleviating some of those parking issues and avoiding parking at some of the residents' yards and clogging up their driveways in that area. They've been receptive to all that. I don't know what plans that they specifically have. A couple of years ago, we changed the traffic pattern in the pickup line to line up to the north of the school on Conjunction Street. We did that so that the four-way stop at that intersection of College and Conjunction going south would remain open for traffic and residents trying to get to and from their homes during that period of time, and emergency vehicles also. And that's helped considerably and made the flow work pretty good. But it has also created some problems because Conjunction basically becomes a one-way street for about 15 minutes in that area. So if someone were to go up there and try to park on the street, it would obviously cause a bottleneck and a blockage. So I've proposed some no parking areas, and I've met with Councilman Stevenson and talked about that to get some feedback on that. But these are the areas that I'm proposing that we post as no parking. The first area I'd like to discuss is the area between Market and College. Now, per our ordinance already, this whole block between College and Market, or between College and Main on Market, should be no parking because of the fire station. We have it posted on one side, but we don't have it posted on the other side. So that's one of my proposals, is to put a couple signs on the other side so that we can prohibit parking in that area. Also at the intersection of College and Market Street, we have a crosswalk there. We have a lot of foot traffic before and after school. And when parents park on the west side of Market Street, decreases visibility and creates an unsafe situation. So that's a particular area I wanted to make no parking. And having said that, the focus of this no parking will not be to prohibit the residents from using their own area to park. This is just to prohibit non-residents from parking in those areas. And I've talked to the majority of the property owners in all these areas that I'm going to mention, and they were all okay with doing that, and thankful that we were going to do that also. The next section that we would mark no parking is between College and Meadow Street on Conjunction Street on the east side of the street only. So we would make it no parking on the east side of that street only. And for 90% of the time, people don't park there anyway. That's across from the ball fields and down towards the school. It's the only time we have a problem is when the school's having those big events. And we would make a no parking area between Conjunction and Washington Streets on Ohio and on Jefferson Street. So there'd be no parking on either side of those streets. And we've already got a no yard parking ordinance, but it's kind of a gray area. People will park half in the yard, half on the street. Streets narrow anyway, and quite frankly, 90% of the time, the residents don't park there, and nobody parks there. It's just when these high traffic times when the school's having a function. I've already kind of did a test of this last year. For a couple of their events, I put up temporary no parking signs in all these areas, and it completely cut out any issues, and we didn't have any complaints from those residents. And the wanted me to come back and do it again this year, but it's pretty labor intensive to post all that each time they're having an event. I don't always know each time they're having an event. So I don't know that we need to pass an ordinance, because we already have an ordinance that states that there are areas that are designated no parking, and the town reserves the right to post that. So, and I think we've got some of the signs we need, and I'm sure.
Maybe not 100%, but we probably have 60 to 80% of the signs.
The signs we need to post.
Okay.
Post the signs.
So the two things that we consider, one is the cost for that, and do we want to post those ourselves or hire someone to post the signs like we did the four ways?
Probably have Bush pound those for us. So we use a contractor to use their hammers to install those sleeves.
Do you guys see the maps? Do you have any discussion? Do you have any questions about the areas I'm talking about? Does it make sense?
I know these areas, they get pretty backed up.
Wouldn't they just go to another place, Scott? I mean, if you got 200 cars and you got all them parked there, and you put no parking, then 200 cars has gotta go somewhere. It just
Typically-
go, would it go to another area? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
What I found last year when I posted those areas is they all went down to the ball fields like it was suggested to them.
Yeah,
in the
that
first
would be
place.
good if you could do
And
that.
you always have a person who, you know, the oddball, parks between two no parking signs and says, well, I didn't park behind a no parking sign. You just have to deal with that.
Well, yeah, I just wondered whether they go somewhere else, it's probably a problem.
It's in as much of an attempt to respond to citizens' complaints as it is, you know, to deal with some actual problems and some safety problems.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, why don't you make a motion?
Make a motion that we contract with Jeff Bush to install the signpost and install no parking signs in areas that Marshall Taylor has notated on this map.
So, a motion made and properly seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next topic I had was our current golf course ordinance. There has been some interest in revisiting that and making some alterations. This would be the second time we've amended that ordinance. It's kind of a work in progress.
The two main things that we want to get removed are the seat belts in the golf carts, the safety restraints, and then the hours of operation is written wrong in our ordinance. Right now, it says you can only ride them from 6 a.m. till noon, so it needs to be switched to PM to AM.
It's 12 midnight to 6 a.m.
Yeah, right now it reads.
12 noon to,
Yeah.
yeah. It should be some-
But I mean, I think everything else is fine with the safety of the, you know, if you're wanting to have the lights running all the time, even though that most of them brake lights light up when you press on them anyway. It's just the car seats and seat belts, and I don't know any person in the town that has a seat belt on their golf cart. And even if you tried to put it on there, it would, the seats come up to your, I don't know, we're gonna have anything strong enough to hold the weight of a person. And then that's going with the Brookston, Rossville, all the other towns don't have any restraint in their ordinance for this, that.
What ordinance number would this be?
I think it would be 9.
Is this the?
I don't
Did
think,
you prepare a draft that we could advertise to get it going?
Yeah, Michelle had a
yeah,
version, is this it?
yeah, but then
Which section
does,
is it?
the time had been taken out, so we need to put the time back in, but correct it.
Yeah,
So I have it on my computer, the draft that I sent you and Reed and all the board members. So I mean, I can throw that time back in.
Yeah, and then the other piece was taken out, and you'd have to decide whether you want to put that in. That was regarding
The lights.
headlights and taillights at night.
I mean, they're always ran at night, but if it's, we wanna take it, I mean, it says it needs to be ran 24/7, you have to run the lights and the taillights
That's
as it's written.
The original
Yeah.
intention behind that was like a motorcycle. It
Yeah.
can't be on the road without being illuminated. And we thought that that would be
Yeah,
the same way with the golf cart.
which is fine, yeah, we keep the riding lights in, it's just the safety restraints, I think, is the biggest issue, and then the times of driving, because it's, right now, afternoon, after 12.
Well, it's actually a typo. It says 12 p.m. midnight to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It should have been 12 a.m. midnight, 6 a.m.
But yes, Michelle has a draft that she can,
Do you want me to go put that time back in
sure.
and then just print a new one? If that's what you guys wanna do.
So we're
So on the
just,
seatbelts, just my understanding is you want to strike everything in the ordinance regarding seatbelts. So
So,
the state law applies.
yeah, so it's just how it's, yeah. It's in the,
so state law applies.
you don't have to have seatbelts on golf cart in the state law. It's just in our ordinance.
Right, so how that works is, we start with 919.11.2, that a person who operates a motor vehicle in which there is a child less than 8 years of age who is not properly fastened and restrained according to that manufacturer's instruction commits a Class B infraction, okay? But then the state law carves out exceptions for certain motor vehicles, which you don't have to have a seatbelt, like a school bus. And so that's how you get to the point where golf carts aren't required. And the way you get there is if it was originally manufactured without a seatbelt as part of the standard equipment installed by the manufacturer. So, actually theoretically, you could have a different model
Yeah.
that it would be required, but that's, I think what we're essentially doing is we're just saying our local ordinance regarding seatbelts, which I think was intended to be more restrictive of the state law. We're now doing that, and we're just going back to.
State law.
So kids can fly around and climb around, no restraints for kids.
It says they, on the ordinance, they need to be seated. So it's like a car or
Yeah, this is,
something else.
there's other restrictions like
Yeah.
speed and,
Yeah.
but this
And it was-
what we're taking out is related to that seatbelt.
And then seatbelts, I think it's stuff that goes over 25 miles an hour is considered a motor vehicle. And the golf carts, fastest golf cart in town is 18.
Well, our ordinance states 20 miles per hour,
Well,
so they have to be under 20.
if you have a gas one, maybe, but you have to sue that baby up. Maybe John Swicks. Yeah, his had one.
Just
So
be
it's-
up,
Pretty fast.
Yeah.
Jay,
It says 20.
So we don't care anything about safety now.
No, okay, we're just doing the state laws. It's like, do we make kids have to wear cups if they're playing basketball, but, they're just for safety, or helmets if they're playing, yeah, I mean, it's something they get hurt, it's a safety thing. I didn't know you have to wear seatbelts for golf carts, if it's not in the law. It's kind of picking and choosing what's safe and what's not safe.
I make a motion, we pass ordinance 2019-9.
Can't pass it without actually having an ordinance in the
Oh.
form that you're passing it done, so.
So do you
We have
want
to-
me
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go put that and
Yeah.
let him continue?
Do you need a copy?
No, our current ordinance?
No, or the one that you emailed?
No, I have it, it's on my computer. I have it saved.
I hope you're kidding.
Have to get a suit.
No. 6 a.m.
Have we had any golf cart incidents or many or
None.
none? It's Marshall,
how many golf carts in the town?
I don't know, 6, 7?
Really that many? Because I know I've only seen the same, seems like 2 or 3.
There's a lot more than that.
There's more than
There's
that.
probably about 15.
There's one about 3 lengths of.
Marshall, have you ever worked an accident at 20 miles an hour with a kid who was unrestrained?
Do what?
You want to take a question from the,
No, I'm
You
asking
want-
you.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
go ahead.
He's
Speak
not.
up.
Oh, I just thought we were waiting.
And there, she asked if you ever,
I heard that. She wants to know if I ever worked an accident at 20 miles per hour.
At 20 miles an hour with a kid unrestrained.
No restraint on a kid, what happened?
No, I haven't.
Doesn't make any difference. Everybody have to wear seat belts and collars, just in case. Bye.
I see that on mine.
We call something.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Have a seat, one of them got back seat, it's got seat belts, front and back.
Responsibility comes into play at some point in time, raising
You
kids.
know, the government always has to
Screw
weigh
it
the
up.
odds of personal enjoyment with being too restrictive and, you know,
But on the books.
big, big government. I grew up riding the pickup truck too. I was
Paper drives.
glad to go.
Paper drives, pile all the papers on.
We used to just put motors on bicycles, how fast you get them going. Tell you, Brad.
If kids start bouncing out the back, when it's changing.
Next time. That's gonna go on this next time.
Yeah, do you want to just go on to your next item while we wait?
Okay. I have, one of my officers, one of my newest officers is going to leave us. So I have 2 people that, one I would like to hire as his replacement, and then another just to have as a backup. He's not interested in working a set rotation, but wants to be on the backup status, and that would help us in certain situations because we don't have to get all of the hours covered that we have budgeted. Austin Burris works for the Sheriff's Department, has several years on. He is a Navy veteran. He has expressed interest in putting in an application to work for us. He would take Connor Booth's place, and Connor works 2 shifts every other week, so 4 times a month. The other officer who wants to be in a part-time, on-call type basis is Matt Devine. He is a retired LPD, Lafayette. I come from up north, so L is always with us. All right, he's a retired Lafayette police officer. He is very experienced, retired last year, so he hasn't been out quite almost a year yet. Any questions about those 2 concerns?
How soon is Connor going to be leaving the house when you replace somebody?
He said he would stay on until I found a replacement, but he kind of recruited this guy and suggested him to me. I did my background on him. But probably, I'm going to lose Connor this next month, so.
And you've met the 2 new officers you're going to, have you met them in person yet?
Oh, yeah, I've interviewed him.
So they're all
That
good to go now?
background.
Matt has.
He spent 7 years as a detective, was on their accident reconstruction team. Very well thought of from everybody I've interviewed.
You do.
Is he still within his credentialing to be an officer?
Yeah, once you're out 2 years, then you've got to go back and do some remedial stuff, so he's only been out a year, so I do have a call down to the academy to make sure all of that's correct and up to date. And with him not being affiliated currently with a police department, there would be some extra costs involved. We would have to make sure he gets a state mandated training each year, much like we do Jim County. But hopefully, I mean, our training budget, we've not ever gone over that, and it's got quite a bit of funds, and so I don't foresee that as being a problem. We have to get in a class or two to continue keep his training up to date. He would attend our IMA conference where we get the majority of our state mandates each year, and that would be like another $75 for him, so that's pretty cheap training. And then you could
Is he
get-
gonna go in as a backup, or is he gonna work a little bit?
He's gonna be like a backup if somebody else can't work, somebody that I can go to from the pool and say, I need this shift covered. So he's not gonna work a set schedule like the rest of them do. So, but it's still gonna be within the hours that were allotted. I'm not asking for additional hours, but additional pay. Obviously, we have to get the uniforms. He would be a little more expensive because I would have to give him a vest. So $500 to $800, that comes in. I would probably not get him 2 full sets of uniforms because he's just going to be back up, not going to be working that much. So I'll probably just get him 1 set. And my fingers are crossed, I'm hoping that Connor and Matt are similar in size, so maybe that will work out.
Well, Harvey, if you fit into this.
There's a call. They wear sizes.
I'd make a motion where we replace those with Burris and combine for backup.
Second.
There's been a motion made and properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. What's the number of this ordinance?
9.
Wait, 2019 actually. And I forgot to add the M, so he.
One more change,
Huh?
one more change. Not just that.
Oh, just that?
So how many officers, how many deputies you got then? What would that make?
That would make 8 besides me. Like I alluded to, we don't meet our budget, because there's probably 30 odd days a year that we don't cover, just because we can't get somebody to works all day, or a lot of my go time goes uncovered. But to do that, we would have to add a lot more and have a much bigger pool for part-timers to be able to cover that, or fill a full-time status. Obviously, that would be ideal, but to have 4 or 5 officers that would take to make 24/7, even approach that, would have to be at least 4 full-time.
Is there any other people that want to take on full-time, so at least had 2 full-time?
Nobody that we got
Nobody that we got couldn't do it.
employed by us, we would have to do a recruitment.
Okay. So, do you want?
All right, so to do this tonight, we just need to suspend the rules and allow this to be passed on first reading.
Okay. Like to ask for a motion to suspend the rules to pass this on the first reading.
Second.
Motion made, properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
And then we just need a voice vote. Because it's an ordinance.
Okay, so just to adopt the changes of taking out the safety belts and adjusting the time to the correct time in the ordinance.
Well,
Ordinance number 2019-9.
I would say like this part where you're repealing
Which
the
section?
2016-3.
Oh, repealing
And
2016-3.
and then changing it to 2019-3.
And we're gonna change it to ordinance 2019-9. Yes or no, Ron?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes. No, I mean, yes or no, we're voting.
Do what?
We're voting, so I guess I'll do a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 No,
Okay, motion carries. Anything else? I think there's
No, that's all it is.
Okay.
Stamp it or something.
New and old business, town matters. Okay, comments from residents?
Working hard back at 7701 Adams Road. Last meeting I asked about giving a copy of the drainage plan for the new annexation. And Reed, you told me that you would check in on it. So this question is for you. So what did you find out?
Nothing yet.
I haven't heard anything from anybody.
Well, I will say this, it's a good thing somebody is keeping an eye on what's going on down the road here, because there's two major things that I was called about by the county surveyor that they're not going through. And it's a good thing Michelle Watson's doing her job, because she caught the guy that's doing this the cheapest way you can. So you guys probably will hear about it. So I do know this, because I'm still in touch with IDEM and Zach Beasley. And it's lucky somebody's watching them, because they tried to pull a slick one, they didn't get it through. And I think you might be in big trouble with the water coming there. Because ain't you got the house right next to it? You'll find out, because there's a thing coming, so when it all gets set. So that's why I would like to have a copy of this, because I want an engineer, because who's working for Malacus, they didn't think about washing out the side of the hill.
I mean, what I can say is, I believe that any report we receive would be a public record regardless of whether it's been acted on or not, and could be requested. And I don't see any reason that we would not produce that. I don't see any exception.
I mean, Michelle did do her job and clocked this. That's why it's not ready now, because it's pretty major, and I was told this by two different people, a guy in Indianapolis and the guy sitting down by the courthouse. So when they do what they gotta do, you guys better keep an eye on what's going on.
Does Michelle send any of us a report or anything?
Never seen anything.
No, I think she did that out of consideration
No,
for,
she sent us back an email the other day saying that their clock changes and that they haven't got anything, she let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle
But I mean,
let us-
that's it.
She'll let us on.
Yeah, but that's what she said the other day, was that there was things.
because if they'd have done it like they originally told us at the meeting downtown, they'd have washed the side of the hill out, because all the water's going into a holding pond, and it's gonna go out in 100-foot tile, and all that water goes out in one place instead of 700 or 800 feet. And she caught that, and it wasn't, so she is doing her job. So, make sure all this, that's why, so, you know, because still haven't seen it, I just come to the people I talk to, they asked for it and they got it, because they work for the county or the state, that's how they got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from residents?
Cindy Marston, 49 Shady Lane, just a couple things. I want to thank Tammy for voting against the golf cart ordinance. I don't have a golf cart, so I don't have a dog in this fight. But I love kids, and the thought of an accident with a child in a golf cart that gets thrown just terrifies me. But the second thing is, Reed, you probably don't know the answer to this question, but I have fairly decent idea that it might be not allowed to wear campaign apparel at a public meeting when you're an elected official. And if it is illegal, if it's not illegal, it's at least in bad taste. And I know you guys think rules don't apply to you, but we notice.
Anyone else? Comments from council members? Ron?
No, just if we could check on the campaign stuff, so we could either wear it or not wear it, or put our posters up, or have a cheering section or whatever. So I'd like to know the answer to that. That's all.
Okay.
If anybody would like a shirt that says Dayton on it, you can go to any embroidery shop and they'll probably stitch it on there for you.
But can we put it on our campaign ads
It's
too?
a campaign shirt,
And still wear it
actually.
at
It's
a town
simply a
meeting?
campaign shirt.
I don't think so.
Put Dayton name where you want
It's
to
a
put it.
campaign shirt, actually.
Ask for a motion
I have nothing. Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh my God.
Second. Motion made, properly seconded. Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
My kids will still be alive.
Fix that. The mic can come over here.
I was too. I'm gonna go up and down.
You should say what's wrong with it.